The Committee of the Whole is now back in order. Before we announce the second round and the activities of the second round, I'm going to ask Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to ask the body to just rise for a moment of silence in recognition of 9/11, please. Thank you very much, colleagues, and of course, I know many of us are aware of another tragic act of violence today, and we just pray that that does not continue. Colleagues, first of all, panel, I'm going to remind you that you're all still under oath for this second round today. We are on the second round, questions with the panelists. Each senator is allotted 10 minutes. You have until the panels are dismissed to submit floor amendments you wish to propose. Amendments submitted after dismissal will be considered out of order. Amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerk at session@guamlegislature.gov. Amendments will be processed in the order they're received, and any replacement is considered a new submission. When we are done with the discussion, the panelists will be excused, and then we'll continue forward. At this time, for the second round, Senator Vice Speaker Ada, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to find out if the folks from GMH had brought their listing, the $26 million for what they for the vendor payables, if they brought it with them, so we can review it in the committee as a whole.
I'll provide that by the end of the day. I started working on it this morning to update it, but ran out of time before we came here.
Yeah. So that's the concerns that I have, Mr. Chair, is that here we're discussing about what vendor payables are going to be paid, but yet we don't have a listing in front of us to see exactly what's going to be paid and what this bill is going to be going towards. So, we knew we were coming into the committee of the whole and to address this $40 million issue. I mean, this issue has been ongoing. So, compiling the list and submitting it to the legislature, I don't think should have taken too much time from yesterday to today to get it together, because we already knew what is going to be paid, because 26 million, that's the figure that GMH has given us.
I can give you something from August, but really the accounts payable it changes every day because we get new invoices every day, and then we also process payments every day. So it is a moving number. So I wanted to give you the most accurate one we had, or the most current one. If I give you the one that we last ran, it's obviously going to change because there are new invoices that have come in, and there are some that we have already made payments against. So in order to be the most accurate as of today, I can have that by this afternoon even, depending on how we get out of here.
Yeah, definitely, because, I most especially those that are 30, 60, 90, 120 days past due. That's the concern. The ones that are just being generated now, I think we can deal with, but the 30, 60, 90, 120, I don't think those have really fluctuated up and down as much. And then the other question that I did have is on the, I know we were talking about $3 million for supplies. I believe that's what you were mentioning, $3 million for supplies and such. Yesterday in the media, one of your supply managers had really came out and spoke about his disappointment about not having the supplies to give the doctors, the nurses, and where are we at with that in retrospect to the supplies that he's talking about? Is it the same thing that this $3 million was going to take care of, or is he talking about something different?
He is, in his comment, I believe what he was talking about is it's an ongoing challenge that we have every day with the hospital. We do, and recognizably, we do have items that are not in stock. We have items that are low in stock. This is just the routine thing. However, we are trying to get a better handle on our supply situation. And so, in fact, what we have been doing more recently over the last year or so is issuing out invitations for bids so that we can get a better handle on our supplies as far as ordering them. But it's no secret that, you know, with the rising cost of everything, including our supplies, it's become a challenge sometimes where we need to order additional supplies and we don't necessarily have the funds. And so it's a lot of different things.
Yeah, understood, but you still didn't answer my question. Of this $3 million that you had set aside, you said, for supplies, is this going to address his concerns that he had mentioned yesterday in the media about not getting supplies out to the doctors and the nurses, and that, you know, was it an issue of the funding, or was it an issue of more not ordering on time, or a supplier issue? What is the issue there? That, because he seemed to be very frustrated, and, you know, he was really talking about the funding more than anything else. So I'd like to know that this $3 million that you have set aside is going to be to take and address his concerns that he had mentioned.
So the short answer, yes, it would, because it would at least help take care of some of the things that we need to order in the more immediate need. And then by giving us the funds to also pay for some of our accounts payables, because those are our vendors, it'll actually alleviate us. And to your question of what is the cause of all of this, it's there's multiple causes. Sometimes we run into issues where we do have vendor payable.
I understand,
yes.
But we addressed the vendor payables with the $26 million.
Yes.
So what I'm saying now, on this $3 million that you had mentioned that you're setting aside for supplies, is this $3 million going to address his concerns on having the supplies that is needed to give the doctors, the nurses, and to take care of what he was mentioning in the media?
Yes.
It will. So the $3 million will.
Yes.
Okay, so we won't have to hear him again about not being able to take care of those issues, because this $3 million now is going to feel what he needs to have addressed.
Yes.
And if I may add, Senator,
ma'am.
or Vice Speaker, that $3 million is also earmarked for like the beds, the striker beds that we had ordered, that we had procured, that will address. But in terms of the Mr. Jesse Manabusin's interview and responses, and he was so passionate about it with supplies, you know, the $26 million that we're going to pay the vendors, that will also help in terms of the basic stock items, like we said yesterday, heparin logs, IV tubings, catheters, you know, gauze sponges. Those will then, if we pay the vendors, we will then, you know, address the supplies need. So two-pronged, the $3 million and the $26 million.
Yeah, and that's why
Thank
I was
you.
mentioning the separation of the two, right? Addressing all the vendor payables with the $26 million, and then the $3 million to address filling in what needs to be done, and then also buying what has to be replaced within the hospital. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the only questions I had. Thank you.
Si Diyos Masi, Vice Speaker Ada. Senator Joe San Agustin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, Lillian, you identified 26 million for vendors and then the 3 million for supplies. Total 29 million. You have 14 million for CIP, correct? How urgent is the CIP?
Very urgent.
How urgent? Explain it. Don't just tell me very urgent, because I can tell you it's a very nice day, but it's not really a nice day. It's nice and hot.
Sure.
So please explain it, so that everybody and the people of Guam and my colleagues can understand the urgency, because 29 million sounds a little bit more urgent than the urgent of doing capital improvement projects that should have been done 5 years ago or should have been ongoing every year. That 14 should have dropped to maybe 5 or 6 by now. if it was entertained, if it was so urgent? Please explain that.
So the $29 million that we requested for in the fiscal year 26 budget does comprise of several projects, and included within those projects is the $5 million to partially address our main electrical distribution panel, which again has been and continues to be a challenge for us. And as we've reported before and mentioned, is that if we don't address our main electrical distribution panel, there is, or we consider it, a single point of failure. From the standpoint that if we don't address it, and again, the recent electrical fire at the hospital further emphasizes the need for this project. But recognizing that we do have other projects that are needed, we only included a partial amount because also considering that we don't always get the funding that we need, and so we were trying to do a multi-pronged approach to try to get funding for this main electrical distribution panel. As we've mentioned before, we've also included this as part of our hazard grant mitigation program application, which, by the way, we are working with the governor's office to try to get that addressed. But in our recent conversations, we may or may not, of course, right, it's not a guarantee we're going to get that. And so hence the reason why it's so critical for us that we even included it here. We felt responsible that we needed to make sure we went ahead and highlighted it as part of our FY26 budget request. So that's the main electrical distribution panel. The additional $5 million for our IT network infrastructure is again a very important piece. In 2023, we had a network shutdown which really highlighted the importance of us having to address our IT needs in the hospital. Not that it's never been mentioned before, because I'm sure it has been, but it's all the more critical now to get this addressed. And so even if we talk about, and we've mentioned these many times over regarding the needing to replace our electronic health records, our EHR, but in order for us to do that, we still have to address the very basic, fundamental IT infrastructure needs of the hospital. Because even if we got the best EHR out there, if our basic infrastructure is not even going to support it, then what's the use? So hence the reason why that is a very critical piece for us. So that covers at least the $10 million. So the remaining $1 million is to address our HVAC. And $1 million for HVAC parts is not a lot of money. We actually need more, but recognizing that in the last year, we have been working towards addressing many of our HVAC needs, which then will also address our mold mitigation issues. This is why in our fiscal year 26 budget, we only asked for $1 million for HVAC parts. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, that's 11 million, right? Okay, we have an agreement of that one. IT network, very concerned. I think this was brought up several times, and at one point I think it was revealed that I guess a mistake or something slipped, that you got the wrong system. Can somebody explain that? Because you're asking for $5 million for an upgrade of IT network that should have been resolved already, and you know, in an agency as big as you guys are, you cannot say today I need an Apple and tomorrow I need a Google. Come on, Nambi. Somebody should have done the homework there. I'm not going to blame Lillian, even though she's got people that are supposed to put that together, and most of you are not the same folks in the past. But I'm just concerned that today you need $5 million for an upgraded IT network, and then 5 years from today, somebody's going to come in here and says, you know, we need an upgrade IT network. Na para. Stop. This needs to end. You need an upgraded IT network? Understood. You need a system that works. That should be the true statement. You have a system that is actually a waste of money, is what I'm understanding. How much money was spent on the current IT network or whatever system you have today? Can somebody speak about that other than Mr. Byrne, who used to be there, that was trying very hard to get money for the hospital? I remember back then. Yes, ma'am.
To your point in terms of the wrong system, well, we were given the impression that this system, this product from MedSphere, was the product that then Cantata, who we were working with the system, EHR system that we had, called Optimum. It was Cantata that recommended that we then go through the novation process to get this product called CareView.
How much did that cost?
Initially around $5 million.
And are you still paying for it?
But every year, you know, there are charges to it because then.
And how much is it costing the hospital today?
The system is $100,000 a month for the licensing and maintenance fees.
So every year it costs you $1 million?
1.2.
You're paying 1.2 for something that's not working, and you're asking for $5 million for a system that we're hoping is going to work. You know, I'm just trying to understand this, because as I look at my colleagues and we start saying, okay, let's figure out a way how to give you guys $5 million. Okay, under the assumption, and you have to understand this, it's a very strong assumption that the new system you're trying to get is going to work. I don't know where, I mean, I don't have enough evidence on my back to say it's coming from another great hospital in America or in Taiwan or wherever. But I'm just hesitant to even believe that you need another $5 million, because you're paying for something right now that's a waste of money. And I'm trying to understand, why hasn't there been an effort to stop paying and, you know, drop back and says, wait a minute, can't keep dropping $1 million on something that's not really working, and come to us and say, you know what, we need $5 million. But you're still are you guys going to be still caught with having to pay the $1.2 million a year? Because there's something wrong here.
Okay, if I may answer.
Go for it.
It is working. It's just not working to the level where the clinicians are very comfortable with it, because it is not as efficient.
Well,
it doesn't have all the components that
Then, Lyndon, is there any way where you can get to that same company and says, can you upgrade the system and not expect us to buy it and use it? You see, it's like my phone, you know, every year I get an upgrade. You see it on the phone. Upgrade, update, stuff. Come on. I'm trying to understand where you bought something for $5 million, you're paying 1.2, it's working, but it's not enough, but we need another $5 million, and then you're probably going to later say, and you know what, we're paying another $1 million, so you're going to be paying 2.2 or 2.4. I don't know when it's going to end. You don't have a pot of gold here.
Yes.
You've only got so much money. Go for it, Jess.
Thank you, Senator. To provide some clarity for the IT infrastructure upgrade, it is separate and apart from the system that was just described earlier. MedSphere is what we use for our electronic health records, or EHR. That's a separate ticket item that you see in our budget request at $16 million. The IT upgrades is more of a hardening of our network systems that constantly go down. So it isn't the amount that we pay a maintenance fee. You can think of that as the application on your phone. What we're asking you to do is help us upgrade the phone. And the application is separate and has a different price tag. I do echo your sentiments why we keep paying for something that doesn't work, but we want to illustrate for you, they're two different tickets, two different items. Allow us the resources to fix the hardware, and then we will dive into fixing the software.
Pura, give me a little bit, get me to the door. But the question is, should I go in there? Go for it, Doc. I want to help the doctors, okay, and the patients, because I know a lot of patients that go to GMH. And I visit GMH quite often. Not as a senator, but as a family member.
If I may ask you a question, do you have the same phone 10 years ago as today?
No, I don't.
No, you don't. Absolutely. That's because the phone that you had 10 years ago wasn't as efficient as the phone that you have today. Correct?
Go for it.
That's correct. So we're talking about an EHR system that is antiquated now, not speaking to each other. We're trying to make it more efficient, but in order to do that, it's going to cost us money. My argument with my panel is we ought to get the best system. The best system that we can see from that other hospitals have been using in the last 5 years, in the last 10 years. The problem is, Senator, is that it costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to be able to do that. Now, for me, my argument is, even if it costs a lot of money, then we're going to have a system that we're going to sustain and keep us more efficient so that we can bill more, we can work more, and have a system that speaks to each other. Billing, outpatient, inpatient, within the hospital itself, and all those things. That's what my argument is. But obviously, they remind me, but doctor, that costs a lot of money. And I say, it's okay, because in the end, if we invest in it, we're going to benefit in the end. That's my argument.
Okay, Doc, I like how you try to use the phone as a system. GMA spend, what, 5 million and 1.2 every year, right? For something that, Tata upgrade, Doc? You don't have anything upgrading. Okay, so let's drop another 5 million. And you're right, this is not the same phone from 10 years. But I'll tell you what, I don't pay more. I don't pay an additional, what? I'm not gonna say $1 million because it doesn't get that level. I'm not gonna spend another $1,000 on a phone. It just keeps getting upgraded. And I'm trying to understand, you got a system today. It works, but it doesn't meet the needs of GMH. Why are you guys telling me that you guys can't go back to that company and says, hey, let's add what she mentioned earlier, let's get an upgrade, and then we can adjust the total cost. Instead of saying to me today and telling my colleagues, you had 5 million, pay 1.2 tomorrow, pay 1.2 the next day, and then add 5 million, and then add another million. I'm trying to understand, where are you getting at? Because I'm hearing 5, 1.2, 5,
Yeah.
and what's going to be another 2? And Doc, I want to help you guys. I want you guys to be more efficient, but I can't support a claim to efficiency that actually proves there's inefficiency. That's what I'm getting at. Again, I'm trying to clean the record.
No, I understand what you're saying, but you can't upgrade your iPhone 2 to iPhone 7. I mean, you can't upgrade the iPhone 2. You have to buy a new phone. What it costs you to buy the iPhone 2 is not the same as what it costs to iPhone 7. iPhone 7 costs more, but it is more efficient. Has
Doc,
better things. You can upgrade it, but you can't upgrade iPhone 2.
Doc, you got a $5 million bill that was paid for the system you have. You're paying 1.2 every year. I'm a great Yuko to maintain it. Are you saying you can't upgrade anywhere there?
No.
You need to buy a brand new system?
We can't upgrade it to the system that I desire, which is Epic. We can't upgrade it to a system like that. It's just not as good.
Doc, if you were to get a new system, can you get rid of that system, not have to pay 1.2? Probably the answer is going to be no.
Yes, that's the plan.
No, that's the plan. So the 5 million you get for the new IT will get rid of that 1.2?
No. If I may clarify, the $5 million we're asking for, the $5 million we're asking for is simply to upgrade our network infrastructure. This is just the wiring, the switches, the hardware. This is not even the system, because if you look back at in the $29.3 million request, there is a $14.5 million request for a new EHR. And as we've explained before, that $14.5 million was only an estimate for the first year for upgrades for a new EHR. That's not even, so the $5 million we're talking about is simply for the wiring, the infrastructure itself. Because as we know, as you go around the hospital, you'll find dead spots in there. So even for our staff, when they are trying to do rounders for telemedicine, as an example, there's areas where there's no internet. And, even if they use a MiFi, but if there's dead spots, and so these are some of the things that we need to address, and that's part of that $5 million.
I'm just worried that, and if let's hypothetically look at this. If you got $5 million today for that IT, how fast will that be upgraded? Let's try that. Another year from now or 2 years? Really just think about it, running wires and everything. It won't happen in a week. It won't happen in a month. Go for it, Jess. Go for it.
Senator, yes, those items have already been identified, and we are clear to proceed subject to the availability of funds. So the hardware itself, like up systems that are larger scale than what you would typically find in your household. If we think about what we need for our IT needs, I'll drive it back to a personal use. If I'm operating my home and I have my power fluctuate, there's a brownout, it will affect my Wi-Fi router. Your Wi-Fi at home connects to several devices. It may be your phone, it may be your laptop, it may be something that's technology advanced like my aircon. Will turn off and it'll tell me on my phone on an app. So we're asking $5 million to build the ups and rewire our house so that we're prepared for those.
How long will it take, Jess? If you got $5 million today or tomorrow, how long will it take?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're going to be. We're going to be looking at a clock. We're not looking at excuses no more.
Yes.
Because there's been many excuses for the many years.
Yes.
Go for it.
Because we cannot compare, we're scaling systems.
How
if it's the
long will it
hospital
take,
we're talking
Jess?
about, it will take a phased approach that will take several months because we don't have all the items we need on island. They'd have to order it, they'd have to ship it. Those things would take several months and in phases, okay. So wiring, but all will be addressed at the same time, Senator.
Okay, I'm just saying this because $5 million for an IT network, $1 million for HVAC, $5 million for electrical. I'm looking at the clock because I like how you unfortunately you folks are using my phone, using your house. Stop! It's not my house. It's not my phone. It's the Guam Memorial Hospital where you treat patients, where we hope to see patients walking down the street, patients being taken care of. Okay, and I'm just trying to look at a clock. If you were fortunate enough that this body was to find you the funds and provide you the funds, and one of my colleagues brought up, are we going to talk about this 6 months from today? Go ahead and say no, because the answer is going to be yes. I can already see it. And my concern is that 6 months from today, you won't have your electrical fix. Because if GPA, who's good at electrical, in the governor's office that have offered and pushed it, that electrical should have been done. COVID went by, millions of dollars floated on Guam. What is the industry that wasn't stopped? Construction. They should have went in there, they should have started fixing everything. It didn't happen. IT network, you had a system. Now you need a new system. HVAC. I know it's warm up there. I've been up there several times. And it's sad, because it shouldn't be. It's a hospital. There's a lot of things that needs to get fixed. And I'm just surprised that, like I go back to what I asked yesterday about Gita. How far has GMH reached out to Gita? Said, Gita, can you figure out something for us? That would be an answer I'd be looking for, a comment being stated. So Doc here won't be saying, I need supplies. Supplies should be there. Shouldn't be worrying about gauze. Shouldn't be worrying about any of those simple supplies. Hold back the other vendors even though you have to, but get those supplies in because at the end of the day, you're never going to get to those other items. And I know this body is trying to figure out a way to get you some money. That's all we've been doing, is trying to figure out how to get money out to as many agencies as possible. And GMH is a critical agency, there's no doubt. But you know what? I'm going to tell you, as I listen through my colleagues asking questions, be very careful of your answers because We don't need upgraded pen and paper. Everyone here is writing notes, and we're doing the simple math. If there's 24 million here, 10 million here, 8 million here, it adds up to 40, it's done. But 6 months from today, this day will be you'll be reminded you said, and if you didn't do a procurement, you didn't work with the Attorney General's office to get it done, the monkey's not on us. When we figure out a way to get you funds, it's on everyone's back. Even though, the administrator's going to retire, she won't forget this. She's probably going to be watching saying, basta magagad. Get it done. Get her done. I say that a lot. And with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got 14 seconds. And thank you, panel, for being here. Enjoyed your presence.
Si Masi, Senator San Agustin. Senator Tello-Tadigue, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to my colleagues, and thank you again for being here to the panel. Appreciate your time. I just have a couple questions with regards to the funding, this $40 million, what it's going to pay for. So what is the first thing, if you were to get Lillian to get the $40 million, what is the first thing that you're going to pay for?
The vendors.
Okay, so now that brings me to another question, because earlier I heard Mr. Burns say it was the vendor payables over at GMH was 30 million, but yet I'm hearing it's only 26 on your side. So Mr. Byrne, and can you tell me, is it still 30 million that vendor payables over at GMH? Because they're saying it's only 26.
Well, I'm only speaking from an email I got containing a printout, and the timestamp is 9/2, which shows 30 million, of which about 12.5 million is owed to the government. And that's why I'm so concerned. I think we all need to know exactly what's going on, and I certainly can't tell you what's going on if I don't know what's going on.
Okay. So Thelman, do you agree, Ms. Hutchinova?
Yes, I sent that to Mr. Byrne earlier this month. So that is the report that we're trying to update right now for Senator Ada.
Yeah, so we can say it's actually around 30 million.
At the time, it was 30, yes.
Okay, so then you have 10 million left over. What are you going to use that 10 million for?
Senator, if I may give you just one number, because we've heard already maybe 20 different numbers, all in the millions. But the one number that we want to impose upon you is $83.9 million. So if we reflect on the past FY26 budget bill.
But just before you start on your wish list, just tell me, because this bill calls for 40 million.
It does, and
yes,
that's why
so tell me where the 10 million will go to.
You're asking us to prioritize of the remaining 10 million between 28.2 needed for operations and 29.3 needed for CIP. It's hard and difficult to prioritize personnel or CIP that's critical, or our vendors. That's why I'm illustrating for you the total need based on the amounts adopted in the FY26 budget bill as passed by this body and vetoed by the governor is 83.9 million. And here we are trying our best to give you our best assumption of priority based on 40 million. Anything less than the 40 million only drives us further into the gap that we currently experience.
Right, so we'll give you 30 million for vendor payables, that's what your priority is, and the 10 million is going to go to, because from what I gather, you're going to need 17 million for the panel, the electrical panel, right? So will that $10 million go toward the electrical panel? I mean, that seems to be the real case here, because it's starting to fire.
There's a challenge, correct. And as much as we owe our government vendors, we can pay our private vendors that provide the supply and the materials and maybe even some of the equipment. But if we owe our government an amount of 10 plus million, perhaps we can redirect that to take care of some of our critical CIPs while still addressing the differences that we have for the operations.
Okay, so Jesse, what you're saying compared to what Lillian said is that now you're saying only pay $20 million to vendor payables, and then use the other 20 million for the CIP.
Because what the bill proposes is the latitude for the
Okay,
Department
so-
of Administration to decide.
So I'm going to go back to Lillian as the person in charge at public health. At Guam Memorial Hospital. Lillian, is that Jesse's saying something different? You're saying to pay, the first priority is 30 million for vendors, but now he's saying something different.
Well, and that's what we want to do, is pay the vendors, particularly like Jesse said, the government vendors like GPA, the health insurance that we owe for the employees' premiums, and those are part of the priority of vendor payments.
I see.
But yes, we do need to make sure that we balance out what we owe for the vendors and what we need to make sure, like the IT infrastructure we mentioned yesterday,
Okay.
and the electrical panel, and the 3 million for the supplies and the 1 million for the HVAC. So.
Okay. Now I understand. So you're actually categorizing vendors as your insurance that needs to be paid to the government of Guam. You're incorporating GPA having to pay. So that's vendors. I was just thinking of vendors who, supply the medicines and the supplies to the hospital. What are those? What is that amount?
As of the August report, Senator, what was owed to vendor supplies is around $5 million. We do owe $4 million to the travel nurse agencies that provide us the augmented support on the floors. We have about over $1 million for Guam Power Authority, a certain amount for Guam Waterworks Authority, $10 million for the medical premiums that are due to the government of Guam.
Okay, but Jesse, just give me the one where the businesses on island who will stop providing the hospital with supplies and medicine to the hospital to care for our patients. That's the number I'm looking for.
So the amount that was reported back in May 5 today, it's $6 million.
Okay, so $6 million to pay these vendors that supply medicine, supply your sheets, your wipes that are needed to the hospital, $6 million. So that's doable.
Correct.
And then everything else is pretty much government of Guam, right?
There's a big chunk that will be government of Guam owed
Okay.
payables. We know that there's over $1 million to the government medical insurance premiums, a few amounts to Department of Revenue and Taxation for our tax withholding contributions, and then the difference to the power and water utility agencies.
Okay, so we can subtract from 30 million down to, and take away 6, so you're looking at $24 million in just government of Guam expenses, right?
Correct. So we need 6 to take care of the supply vendors. If
right.
we can take additional
Okay.
$4 million to pay off our travel nurse agencies, that will add up to 10.
Oh, that's 10. Okay,
Correct.
so 10. So yeah, we're okay. Yeah,
Yes.
travel nurses are very important.
Correct, Senator.
Okay. Now I get a clearer picture of what exactly we're going to be paying, that 40 million is going to go to. So I think we have, if any kind of leverage here, it's the government of Guam side. How long can they hold off, but still provide you with the necessity, the power, provide you with, well, hopefully the employees won't sue you because they, they need to also have their insurance paid too as well. So, yeah, I understand that. Okay, so that's a better understanding of what is priority. Now, that being said, then once you have, especially the supplies paid off, then you have to address that panel, that power panel that ever since 2019, since I've been here, you've been talking about and nothing has been done. So can you safely say, Lillian, meaning before you retire, to ensure that that panel is going to be addressed and fixed if you were to get this money?
I will be retiring September 30th, so that's in 2 weeks. But at least the discussion and the, probably even the bidding that we're going to send out, that's already going to be started, definitely.
So the bidding
Yes.
you already sent out the RFP, and you can't because you don't have the funding, right?
No, right.
Okay, but the package is all ready to go, right? Okay.
The plan is all ready to go. We just need to get it all certified again.
Okay, so my next question then is on the emergency procurement process. What do you need in order for Guam Memorial Hospital to, bypass the procurement process into emergency situation? What do you need?
Hi, Senator. If I may attempt to answer your question. So in addition to the authorizations afforded to us, I think we also need to evaluate the amounts. There are caps on what can be expended under an emergency procurement. We would encourage a revisit on those caps because clearly, as outlined in our earlier testimony, the ticket items for electrical panel and IT go well beyond $250,000. So it would be a challenging effort to make meaningful progress on addressing those issues. If we need to spend $10 million to fix one problem, we're capped at $250,000. The emergency declaration really doesn't solve or support anything.
And just where do you need that emergency declaration, from this body or from the governor?
Well, we need the...
Or the board? Does the board do
Well,
do
the
that?
board can, yes, Senator, but we need this legislative body drives policy. The policy needs to change to allow us an increased cap on what amounts can be expended under the emergency, and then we push for the emergency.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay. Mr. Burns, in the CRER report in July that was issued to us, we noticed that in the CRER report, there are areas that take the excess revenue, right, which is in Public Law 37125 for Guam Behavioral Wellness at $198,000, and then you go further down and you see about, DICIT, Chamorro Land Trust, UOG. So Chamorro Land Trust being the largest at $9 million and $5,750,000, bringing it to about $15 million in money that was appropriated using excess revenue. So my question to you is, because it's on the CRE report and it's calculated, can you tell me if all these these appropriations and these public laws were already paid off?
Well, going down them, the two small ones, I can't tell you, but I don't see why they wouldn't be, because they're fairly small.
Right.
The $9 million to the land trust was not paid. There was a controversy surrounding that. But we are paying, as we pay UOG each week, we're paying the proportion, the weekly proportion that's required to make up that number by the end of the year.
Okay, so that one's in, but so Chamorro Land Trust, that's $9 million still sitting.
It's still in abeyance, yes.
Okay, what about further down on special funds? It's $11 million worth of special funds. Have you adjusted that by paying out those who are appropriated special funds?
Typically that would be done at the end of the year when we know
That's
exactly what it is.
So that's 11 million floating around as well?
That 11 million is floating around, but
waiting
as
to
we
the
get
end of the year.
towards the end of the
Yeah.
year, it's looking like a fairly firm number.
Okay, so now with this bill at $40 million, giving the governor the ability to use FY25 excess revenue or anything beyond even that, some of these won't even be able to be paid off. Or will there be a priority with the 40 million and then?
Well, don't forget that the net amount of this is 35 million. That's not the amount before these deductions are made.
Right.
This is the amount after. So
Right.
I think it's reasonable to assume that the bulk of the 40 million will be available from this, plus the other sources that we discussed yesterday.
Okay, so if we were to put that she has one transfer authority, the ability to transfer using her ability to do that, as well as using any excess revenue for FY25, you're saying that there should be enough money to cover the 40 million.
The transferability is only between executive branch agencies.
Right. Does the governor have the ability to transfer money into the Guam Memorial Hospital without our permission? Can she do that?
No, Senator.
Okay, so she'll need to be able to have transfer authority.
Yes.
Okay, so that's one. Number two, you're saying that there should be enough funding in FY25 right now, sitting in the bank, to be able to give Guam Memorial Hospital 40 million, correct?
Well, we are sitting in the bank at the time we pay it, yes.
Yes, okay, so there is funding there, but you are going to have to tap into whatever we appropriated in FY25 as excess revenue, correct? You can prioritize this one over the Chamorro Land Trust, correct?
Yes, but the Toronto Land Trust is already deducted here, so
Yeah.
you don't have to deduct it twice.
Yeah, just in case we don't reach that, though, I'm talking about like if we don't have enough excess revenue, and from what, in July we were showing 35, and then August, and that's after, of course, all the deductions.
Yes.
And then in for FY25 in August, are you anticipating August and September? Are you anticipating a little bit more in excess?
A little bit more. August is
Okay.
never usually a great month. September, we usually do much better.
Okay. You know, regarding the bond financing, the refinancing of the 2015 D bond, I do know that, you know, for accounting purposes, that it's not all paid at once. It's actually 2 payments throughout a year. And the last payment being in May, that the bond proceeds that have to be paid out will be in May. One in November, well, October, you put it into a trust. And then it's paid out in November. And then in April, it's put it on in a trust to be paid out in May. And then you save funding until the next payment, which is November. Now that we refinance the budget, refinance the bond, and based on the, you know, the Bill 44-38, we appropriated $31 million. So we're looking at now a savings of about 19 million, because now we only have to pay 11 million plus for this bond. Now from May until October, of course, you've been setting aside revenue to be able to make that payment. Now that it's much less in funding, could you be using some of that funding to help pay for this 40 million as well that you've been setting aside? Now you don't have to set aside so much?
Well, it's not actually set aside. We actually pay each.
No, I'm talking about every month you make
every month
you set aside
no,
money.
we actually pay it to the trustee. It
Right.
comes out of the general fund into the restricted fund.
I see.
So once it goes in there,
It's
we
restricted.
can't touch it, and that's what the bondholders
Okay, so
like.
you don't just set it aside. You actually put it into that trust fund every month.
And that's what the bondholders
I see.
require when we make the bond payments.
And coming up in October, because you're setting that aside, now you can actually lessen that amount in the trust because you've almost built up that $5 million that's needed to pay for November, correct?
It's, and you know, that,
Okay.
that funding would be available for other purposes. I guess everybody seems to have a different view as to what that purpose is, but yes, it would.
So it should be, coming to think about it now, it probably won't be available until May, to fulfill its true, savings.
On a cash flow basis, that's correct.
And it's true savings,
Yes.
right? Okay, I see. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope we can do something good here today and provide the funding that's needed. But I really think that that panel, we don't want to see another fire, happen at GMH. And Lillian, I'm asking even though you retire, you can still make phone calls to make sure they're on top of it, and getting that panel up and fixed. So I appreciate it. Okay, thank you so much.
Senator Tadigui. Senator Perez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning to the panel today. So I just want to ask a couple questions regarding, I guess, perhaps the use of the funds. Yuka, how many funds does GMH have, and is there a way to segregate collections versus general versus special fund money, or is it all put into one fund?
It's put into one bank account, yes.
Okay, so there's no way to identify what's general fund and what's collections?
Collections are general fund.
Oh, they're considered general fund money?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So the other thing in GMH's enabling statute, it requires an annual reporting of the finances, and that should be sent to the governor and the legislature. I didn't see a report for any report recently, and if you can, I guess, let me know where can I find that report.
We are about 99% done with the audit. There's been some setbacks on a couple of things, but that's usually considered our annual financial reporting is the annual audit.
Okay, all right. And do you send that to the Legislature in Guam?
I think the copy comes from the OPA because the OPA will be the one to send out the copies to the governor and to the members of the legislature.
Okay, because I'm contemplating an amendment to require reporting, so we're kept abreast. And in your enabling statute, it also requires special reporting to be done on a quarterly basis. And so if I don't need to write an amendment because it already exists in statute, is this something that you're able to do, provide these quarterly reports?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great, great. In regards to, so Jesse, you were mentioning about a cap. And I think we all agree that the electrical system is one of the highest priorities when it comes to CIPs. I guess the question is, what do you think is a reasonable cap for emergency procurement, for that period of emergency procurement?
Well, Senator, I would suggest we can reflect the itemized cost estimates. And rather than giving a blanket emergency procurement power, if you do wish to be a little bit more restrictive, you can say that the cap has been lifted specifically for the electrical panel upgrade and the amount identified in our budget and have it match. That might support having some type of restrictions and not seeing like a broad use of the new power if the policy is entertained.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I could discuss with you what that number is. Okay, that would be great. So Director Byrne, I know your other hat is involved in procurement. Do you have any procurement solutions for GMH that you can offer?
As you know, Senator, procurement is a very time-consuming and staff-consuming, sometimes, exercise. It always involves a lot of effort. We're always looking at how to streamline that effort and make sure that procurement is it has to be protest-proof. But the most important thing is that the bidders or the potential bidders really understand what is being requested. And very often that's a struggle. So we're working with our own agencies to make sure that when we get these specifications, that they are sufficiently clear for bidders to understand. And we've made some progress with that. So, and that shortens the time that it takes to actually complete the procurement. There are some limits that we certainly think should be lifted, and as you know, in the substitute budget bill that we've just submitted, one of these is to increase the limit on the 5150 OAG involvement from $500,000 to 5 million. There are a lot of contracts we have currently hung up with the Attorney General. Some of them are beginning to come through. I know he's suffering from lack of personnel that are able to actually do that. But that is a major hold-up generally in completing procurements. For instance, even the DOA lease at ITC is currently held up in that process, and that means, you know, we're paying out lease because we have to pay the lease because we're sitting there, but we're still waiting for the procurement to be finalized. So raising the limit certainly will help, but I honestly believe that the most effective process is getting these definitions right. It's somewhat of a fine line because you can't tip it to the point where it's specific or seems to favor a particular vendor, because that would be a protest. But I don't believe it stops you from being definite and clear, because bidders, even at that conference we went to, that was one of the issues that industry raised. So that would be my best advice.
Okay, thank you. And in regards to cash being deposited to GMH, I guess, what is your capacity to do that?
Well, all these things that we've been talking about, cash arises at a different time. We have to manage cash to make sure that we have the ability to pay every liability as it arises, and generally we've been able to do that. That's one of the reasons why we want to have control of this. I just heard some discussions about what really needs to be paid and what doesn't need to be paid, and we would certainly want to participate in that. But we also need to make sure that the amounts that are owed to the government, which actually is like a book entry rather than a cash matter, gets paid. The biggest amount owing is the amount owing for the insurance plan. The plan has been paying out claims, including claims to GMH, but we've not been getting the premiums from GMH employees, and that obviously is a concern. The plan doesn't, eventually the plan will run out of funding if that continues.
How much of that is in need of payment as far as the premiums?
Well, based upon the number I had, which I understand needs to be updated, it's 8.3 million.
And is that included in the payables? Okay. In regard, I guess the MOA idea, I just want to rehash that a little bit. So in regards to your IT needs, have you worked with OTEC on developing the scope?
Yes, we've been working with OTEC for a couple years now or so on different things. Of course, initially was to help us when our network shut down, and so we've been touching base with them on different things. And so when it comes to the scope of work for the IT needs, we can definitely have a conversation with them as far as, just maybe cross-check what we have. But I do know from the IT side, a lot of the hardware stuff, we should have specs already for those.
All right, so the other, resource is GPA, because they seem to have a lot of expertise in procurement for highly specialized things, so that's another resource. And I would highly suggest maybe developing MOAs to help develop those scopes of work. Of course, as Dr. Eusebio said, it's hard to, I guess, maybe determine or decide what system is going to be decided upon. I happen to agree with him that you want some system that talks with each other. Otherwise, you're going to be nickel and dimed by these contractors. Yes. And the long-term cost is going to basically exceed what is seen as a savings in the short term. So especially if you're going to invest in something as large as that. But I'm sure like Director Byrne also has some information on that. He can provide some sort of insight on that as well. Okay, I believe those are my questions, and so thank you for your presence and your testimony today. So Tusmasi.
Tusmasi, Senator Perez. Senator Montanari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. I'd like to follow up on this executive order that was signed by Acting Governor Josh Tenorio in October of 2023. According to an article from the Pacific Daily News, this established a fiscal review committee in order to stabilize the Guam Memorial Hospital Authority and keep its financial condition on track. The committee will help monitor, review, and make recommendations to the governor regarding GMHA's budget, plans, financial expenditures, and revenue. The committee will also make We'll also help make recommendations on GMHA's project proposals to help address critical infrastructure repairs in GMH using $20 million of American Rescue Plan funding. And we all know at the beginning of this year that $10 million of that was ripped from GMH and went to the new hospital project. This article goes on to state that after discussing the issue with Governor Lulian Guerrero, we believe this is one of the necessary steps to ensure fiscal stability at the Guam Memorial Hospital going forward. Executive Order number 2023-12 is part of a three-pronged approach to improve conditions at GMHA and ensure the hospital is able to provide the best services possible until a new hospital is constructed to replace our current aged facility. Mr. Byrne, you are part of that fiscal review committee. What were the recommendations?
We make recommendations each time we meet. One of the recommendations that I certainly made and wish to follow up on last time we met, which was about 3 weeks ago, I believe, is ideally actually to do with procurement, is that we procure pharmaceuticals government-wide through the health insurance plan, which will enable us to take advantage of PBM pricing. I asked GMH how much they spend on pharmaceuticals each year, and the answer I got was about 8 million. So there's a saving that we get rebates basically from pharmaceutical manufacturers based upon our usage. So I want to take advantage of that particular rebate too. We do talk about these capital plans. Sometimes they appear to, I think as you're finding out, that they are fluid and need refining. And of the recommendation certainly would be that we refine them and get to the point that I've just been speaking about with procurement, that they can go out to bid in a package that's biddable. I mean, one of the bids that went out that I believe got no responses was for the construction of the maternal health center. Now, that obviously needs some investigation as to why there was no response. Maybe it was too complicated. There are all sorts of reasons that I hope that GMH is looking at as they review these capital projects.
GMH, whether it's Yuko or Lillian, do you believe these recommendations, again, this was signed in October of 2023, have ensured fiscal stability at GMH?
The discussions that we've had have been kind of helpful, and the last one that Mr. Byrne mentioned with regards to a group purchasing or for pharmaceutical items, we see that as something that is beneficial. We just haven't been able to act on it, but we are researching how we can then, operationalize that one. The other issues that he mentioned, I already forgot, sorry. But it has been helpful to meet with Mr. Byrne with regards to our, fiscal financial footing. We also talked about having the consultant to work with the rebasing for GMH, but we just haven't made any much progress or movement with that one. Several other discussions. Go ahead, Yuka.
We also discuss issues about payables, like Mr. Byrne mentioned about our increasing liability on the health insurance side and how we can address that. But I did offer the pharmaceutical fund offset, so we've kind of been discussing that to offset, because it really is just a book entry where there won't be any cash involved, because if they owe us pharmaceutical funds, we owe them the insurance premiums, it would be just a journal entry to wash that out. We discuss sometimes the payment issues with DOC. I'll admit that when we meet, we try to meet every month, but it's really more on the immediate issues, like payables are growing. I don't think we've had time or to discuss like really the long-standing issues, but it's really been more on what's immediately in front of us. That's what we've been able to discuss.
Yeah, I would agree. We really concentrated on emergent issues, and emergent issues are really why we're sitting here today.
Senator, in terms of the MCH project that we have issued IFBs, he is correct that we haven't had much of a response. We have now narrowed it down to just focus on the renovation of the nursery. And so that has been moving forward. There was a contractor that responded. Go ahead.
Yeah, to clarify, so one of the things specifically for the MCH renovation project, so yes, there were no bids the last time we put that out. And so as we've previously reported to this body, we were going to go back and revisit the scope to see how we can put it out again to where it would probably be more palatable for the bidders. And so we should be working on putting out that IFB again soon in the next few weeks.
One of the other reports that comes out of this discussion is the collections report, and it became apparent that one of our own agencies, DOC, owed a considerable amount of money to GMH, and we've been working, and we actually have been able to transfer, and I would estimate it's been about 8 to 9 million this year of old payables to GMH. So that's a kind of tangible result of the discussion.
Okay, and I just brought that up, this fiscal review committee, because it just doesn't seem as though GMH has really had any big successes in terms of their what's owed and their financial situation. So, I mean, when you have BBMR, you have DOA since 2023 really supposed to be helping and making these recommendations, and here we are today looking for $40 million or a bill for $40 million to help GMH. And one of the things with this bill, it basically gives control to DOA over this $40 million. So if you can please explain how this is supposed to work, because why not just give the $40 million to GMH? Why do we have to give it to DOA for DOA to decide how this money is going to be spent? I mean, how much input is GMH going to have? And is it going to be taken seriously?
Well,
speaking
for
DOA
myself,
is going to be in control.
Speaking for myself, the control is only of the funds, right? I think there was some thought that this was going to be controlling procurement. That's not the case. We just want to be able to estimate the cash flow, because as I responded in response to Senator Taitegui, not all this cash is going to arise at once. So we want to, and I've learned today, sitting here, that we apparently need about 8 million in immediate funds to pay out funding for supplies. And so that is the kind of decision and discussion that I would expect to have. But I'm also obviously concerned about the amounts of money that's owed to the government. And these actually derive from payroll deductions, so it affects people, and that's always a concern to me. So the goal would be to pay out whatever is needed, but the concern is that the appropriate decisions are made, just like the decisions in the Fiscal Review Committee as to what's a priority and what's not a priority. And what has happened once, but I don't ever want to happen again, is we gave some money to GMH and thinking that it was going to be used for one payment, and it got used for another, and that was a concern.
I'm sorry, did you say that DOA wouldn't have any control over the procurement? Because
yes,
this bill says fund to the Department of Administration to fund Guam Memorial Hospital Authority's capital improvement projects including its electrical system and operational costs and supplies.
It's funding only, not procurement.
So GMH, is that what you understand? How is this going to work?
Our experience with the DOA, the money being at the DOA accounts, and yes, I recognize Mr. Burns' point that they're the ones who can keep track of all that. But from our end, vendors are calling us that they haven't gotten paid, and so we don't really have all that consistent or regular information that these vendors have been paid. The other thing is, we also have to make sure that all the invoices that we receive from the vendors, we also have to scan those and send them over to DOA for their review. So that part of it, in terms of a procedure, can take some time. But, whatever is going to be really workable and meaningful and, getting the payment to the vendors is really our goal.
So I hope you'll be scanning them now. So I hope you'll be scanning those invoices now so that we can get a good advance on this. And sometimes vendors, Senator, call me too.
So will the payments be made based on GMH's list of vendors?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. I did also want to follow up on this August 21st, 2025 letter that GMH wrote to the governor urging that emergency declaration. And in it, you did outline the $16 million for the main electrical distribution panel and sub-panels, $5 million for IT network infrastructure, $500,000 for enterprise rack mount and individual uninterruptible power supplies, $1 million for HVAC components for a total of $22.5 million. So obviously the 40 million is not going to be enough. So out of this this itemized description for this, what you hoped that the governor would declare a state of emergency, what exactly will you hope to be used from that 40 million to pay for? Is it just the electrical panel and the IT network infrastructure?
As we've mentioned earlier, so yes, and you're right, the letter does outline $22.5 million, but again, recognizing that, okay, if we're going to be given $40 million today, of course, we have to look back and think, so then what can we do with that money? Because it's clearly not enough, right, for everything, and so that's the reason why we mentioned $5 million for the network, the IT network, and then $5 million for the electrical distribution panel, and then $1 million for the HVAC. And so what we were hoping on our end is that within that $5 million for the IT network, because there was a separate $500,000 listed there for like the UPS, the uninterruptible power supply. So we would also, part of that IT network, $5 million would also be used to cover the UPS, because it's still an IT hardware.
Because of the IT issues that the hospital has had, I remember talking to you guys about this corrective action plan with Health and Human Services Agency. Is there any other, I know you had to pay a fine, a penalty, is there any other money or penalties that we could be having to pay?
Not right now. So there was I want to say, $25,000 fine that we had to pay. And in addition to that, there were some steps that we needed to take. So one of that being we had to submit to them an IT risk analysis, which we did. We submitted that on time. And then after we received feedback from HHS, the next step was to submit an IT mitigation plan. And that was, again, submitted on time. That was due, I believe, July 22nd, which we submitted. And then right now we're in the process of waiting for HHS for additional feedback, specifically on our IT mitigation plan. And so depending how that goes, then, because if they approve our IT mitigation plan, then we would then go to the next step. So it's kind of outlined in the corrective action plan as far as what needs to be done and what are the timelines. But there are no other monetary amounts that we anticipate, at least as far as making payments to HHS.
In the corrective action plan that GMH submitted, does it include that the hospital will make a $5 million investment to upgrade its IT infrastructure?
So the $5 million for the IT network infrastructure is part of our 5-year strategic plan. So the hospital's 5-year strategic plan. And in line with the IT mitigation plan, actually, the consultant did identify that the estimated amount that we would need for the first year is about $5 million.
Okay.
So they basically align.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions right now.
Thank you. Senator Borja.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to GMH for coming down here again. You know, as I continue to listen to the questions and just the response, I think a lot of the things that, like, in my head, and as I try to understand, like, okay, how can we help, or what can we do, you know, and looking at some of the history with GMH, or at least as much as I could find right on the internet, is that it seems like traditionally GMH has never really got the money that they've asked for, right? That would be safe to say. But then, you know, I look at what you guys asked. I think in the budget for FY 2025, you guys asked for 72 million, I think was the ask. And then, or we gave you guys, you know, 58 was what was given, or was in the budget bill. So we gave you this, it would be, I mean, obviously this current fiscal year, 40 plus the 58 would bring it to 98, which is more than what you asked. But I guess my question is, right, because I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, how can we get in front of this, or how do we solve this problem of, okay, why, you know, you're never going to, you know, it seems like you never get the money that you ask for. I mean, historically, I mean, some of the stuff I've seen, like back to the early 2000s, like with the money to pay the retirement fund, it was like $11 million shortfall, which obviously just kept trickling over with all the additional stuff that, but I mean, I guess my question is, like, how, I don't know, you know, how do we fix this? And what, I mean, maybe we gave you all the money today, because I mean, right now you asked for 72, or 72 was your request. 58 was what was passed. You're getting 40, which puts you at 98. Is that going to solve all your problems? Because you asked for 72. If you get this 40, and then, you know, the rest of the money in the new fiscal year, is that going to, I mean, I don't know if anybody can answer. I feel like that's not going to solve your problems, because even in history, in previous appropriations, you got what they gave you, and then there seemed to have been additional appropriations, and we're still here. So what, I guess, you know, from a holistic approach and with some foresight, how can we, even if we gave you all the money, is that going to solve all your problems? I mean, I know there are some things that we talked about IT. I don't know, is it legislative oversight? Is it financial? Is it leadership? Is it systematic problem? I'm trying to figure out, like, what do? We give you $40 million today, GMH is going to be good, and we'll never hear from you guys again, right? I mean, so that's why I'm trying to, like, wrap my head around, because we can talk about what didn't happen, right? We can talk about how much money you got in the last appropriation. We can talk about the money that you're about to get in this next appropriation. But historically, based on my research, no matter what we gave you, you've always had to come back down. So what do we do?
Senator, if I can draw your attention, there would be an opportunity that this body can entertain a policy change related to elevating GMHA among other like autonomous agencies. This is driven by Title V, Chapter 22, and describes the exceptions to the Central Accounting Act. We remain the only autonomous agency or semi-autonomous agency not listed. That would give us better control of our accounts. We can establish special accounts within our agency, Currently, we depend on Department of Administration to release funds to the agency, and then they relatively control most of the other expenditures. But that might be something we can work with you on the language for this amendment.
If I can add, Senator, one of the things we've always had to address is the different kind of patients that we serve. There are patients that come in that have insurance, and we bill the insurance and that kind of thing. We have patients that we talked about yesterday, the long stay patients that we don't get much out of them because we are taking care of them, but we're not able to bill Medicare anymore because their benefits have all been exhausted. We have patients that walk in off the street that are homeless. We take care of tourists that sometimes, you know, they get hurt when they're here and they come in, and sometimes they pay, sometimes they don't pay. Sometimes they take off the next day and go back to whatever country they came from, and we don't have the right address for them. We don't have the right phone number. That's also another challenge, is collecting from those kind of patients. We've had increasing costs, particularly since the pandemic. So we've had to, now with inflation, cost of living, the prices of the supplies and pharmaceuticals, obviously they've gone up, but even the cost for our personnel. We've had several pay increases since 2021. We've had to pay the nurses pay increases in order to retain them. And we also had the 22% pay increase for the general pay plan. We've had an increase on the law enforcement for our security guards. The costs for the benefits for these employees have also gone up, for retirement and for health insurance. These are the things that just keep escalating, and we're just not able to keep up with the rate of how that's climbing. And that's been a big challenge from my perspective on the financial side.
And you've been at GMH for what, 7 years now? 7, 8 years? 7 years?
Almost 7 years, yeah.
So, you know, does that get factored into your budget request, these
Yes.
additional costs?
Yes, yes.
So then, you know, and I guess maybe Steve or DOA, you know, Mr. Burns, you said you've been here. I mean, I guess the question, because obviously a lot of the advice in regards to how we fund GMH, you know, Steve, I don't know if you've been here since the early 2000s, and why historically we fund GMH the way we fund them, so that we kind of understand, you know, I guess what I'm trying to understand is, if they've been historically underfunded based on what they tell us every single time they come down here, is what is it that they're missing or that we need to hold them to, so that, you know, I use GCC as a good example, right? Everybody praises GCC and how they manage their funds, and they pretty much get what they normally ask for, although it's little. But how do we get there? Because, or what is the reason we are where we're at, and why historically GMH gets what they get, so that I can at least understand?
Senator, if I may provide an answer as well. I've been in private practice for many, many years, and the majority of my life here in Guam, over 30 years. And so from a private practice perspective, I'm not familiar with all the government rules and regulations. However, if we take what's functioning right now and put everything together, we have another hospital that's a private hospital that's functioning. And yet we have a public hospital that's not functioning. Why is it that the private hospital can function and the public hospital cannot? And I think my feeling is that the only way it's going to work is if we have this public-private partnership somehow, not perhaps the way it was presented before, but from a different perspective, in the sense that the government resumes what the Organic Act tells them what they have to do, making sure that they're responsible for those things, yet allowing the private management hospital, or whatever you call it, to be able to run the hospital like the way they would as a private hospital. I think that knowing what's successful and what's happening, and seeing that what is possible in terms of the way Guam runs, I think that from my perspective as a private surgeon, seeing how things run, I think that's the way to do it. However, the government has to make sure that they owe up to their responsibility of taking care of the homeless, the people without insurers, those things. Because until, and quite honestly, unless we change how we do, for example, the Medicare billing, and we're able to get the payments that we deserve instead of the $1,600 payment that we currently get for Medicare. Until we do that and get reimbursed for how we actually take care of patients, we're continually going to lose every year.
Senator, can I also attempt to answer your question? I mean,
Sure.
How any enterprise fails or is failing is often a question that people inside can't often see because they're part of the day-to-day process, and you know, to give everybody their due, everybody's trying to make it work. They're trying to stretch resources, but there are internal factors and there are external factors. The external factors are costs. You know, costs, including medical costs, are more expensive on Guam because of the scarcity. That affects supplies, it affects equipment, and it affects people. You know, because not everybody, for whatever reason, wants to operate in a hospital on Guam and especially because of the conditions that they find when they get there. There are internal reasons that, you know, Dr. Yosebe was talking about the comparison with the other hospital, and the other hospital has a lower cost base because they don't have the government retirement plan. You know, they don't have government mandates to fulfill, which GMH does. So how do we fund all that is that we have a budget. I mean, up until a few years ago, the budget effectively was in deficit. So it was hard to give GMH or anybody else sufficient funds to keep going. As you pointed out, as we've gone through the years, we may not have got exactly to the number they asked, but we've got much nearer. So maybe the issue is, you know, is the number they're asking right? Is that the right budget? Does that take account of all the circumstances? And it does seem that every adverse circumstance that there is affects GMH. Could I also just address this issue of the accounting, right? Yes, the Central Accounting Act does admit GMH from it, but we don't operate that way. They operate in exactly the same way as UOG, GCC, and everybody else. They have their own funds, their own bank account, so we do not operate them as if they're part of the Central Accounting Act. And I don't actually see how that would make any significant difference. The difference is what you do, not what the law says.
If I may, Senator, and thank you very much for recognizing that, yes, the hospital historically has been underfunded, which is really, that's the core of our financial footing right now. And then toppled by, and I will reiterate, all those different factors that have been mentioned by my peers here, you know, the reimbursement from Medicaid, Medicare, reimbursement from private insurance, we don't get the 100%. Then we have those patients who come in without any insurance, and as you can mention, we do have tourists. Recently we had an individual, a family that came to Guam, delivered their baby, the bill is over $250,000. They don't want to pay that $250,000. So yes, those are all the many different factors that affect our financial situation. And, you know, yes, we come down here to ask for some additional funding, but if we, at least in the beginning, get adequate funding when we present our fiscal year budget, I think that will at least probably minimize our ask for 40 million, additional 40 million or 50 million. So thank you.
That was the point I was trying to make earlier, Senator. Nobody can afford $250,000. So that's a circumstance that you've either got to factor in or factor out. When I was there, I think it was actually, we had a lot of Russian travelers who came and couldn't or didn't pay. And that's something that GMH, will have to deal with. These are exceptional things that really happen because of where we are on the edge of the Pacific, and we're the first stop for some of these patients, basically.
Thank you. Just one last question. Maybe you can answer this question. So how much, I know again, 72 is what you asked for, 58 was what was passed in the budget. You're asking for 40, 98. But what's like the real number? I mean, even just based on average cost, and I'm not talking about CIP, because CIP is not necessarily part of your regular operational budget, right? That you would ask for every year. So what would that number be? Because I mean, at the end of the day, if we're expecting, averaging 40 million a year, and we're only giving you 58, I mean, something obviously there is being cut. But what does that number look like?
So the budget, what we project will be all our expenses for the year is $213 million. What we expect to collect as far as from our patients, from insurance, is $133 million. So that gap is what we need. That's the gap.
Mm-hmm. That's it for me, Mr. Chair. Thank you again for coming down here. Thank you for your answering my questions.
Senator Lujan, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And good morning, panel. Yesterday was mentioned that that GMH owes probably in excess of maybe $8 million, right, to the government in regards to health insurance, right? Self-insurance?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, okay. So in essence, that amount, that is not just the government's share, right? That's inclusive of the employees' share as well?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay. So basically, the employees are paying, but the government is not remitting that, correct?
GMH is not remitting.
Oh, yeah. The GMH is not remitting that, right?
That's my belief. Perhaps you would ask them to confirm that, please.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's what it is. I understand also that you're current in your retirement fund payment, but they're probably close to about $2 million that GMH still owes the retirement fund, right?
No, we're current with retirement right now.
You don't owe $2 million?
No.
Really? We have
Really?
document that shows that you're probably close to $2 million in what's owed. You're current in your payment, but you still owe $2 million.
I had no idea about that, sir.
Okay, maybe we'll provide you that copy, and Mr. Burns had provided that to the staff here, and we just saw that. So we're close to $2 million regarding that. That being said, you guys are, obviously you're down here. You're supporting the governor's bill. You guys all endorse this bill, right? Yeah. Okay. And the reason why I'm asking this is because, and I agree, Dr. Sabio, I agree, PPP is the way to go. I know there's other, being a public hospital, of course, it has its challenges, and the other added situations that maybe public or private hospitals don't have will have to be solved, but the PPP is the way to go. And that being said, and you endorse this bill. What is very glaring about this bill as well is this bill came from the governor's office, from the governor herself, right? And it's pretty glaring because what this bill will do, basically, will take this money and give it to DOA to administer, and then to GMH. So again, if the bill passes, it'll be sent to DOA and then to GMH. And my question, why wouldn't you go straight to GMH? We've always learned that the quickest way from point A to point B is a straight line. Obviously, we're taking the scenic tour in this situation. So I think the governor as well recognizes there's a money management problem over there in this bill. And this is not our bill. This is the governor's bill. So it's very blatant and clear in this bill. Because it's not going directly to you or GMH. It's going to DOA to administer and then to you guys. So there is a money management problem, and she recognizes that. Do we agree? Or is that the portion of the bill that you do not agree with, the governor?
I'm not clear on the money management issue that you're bringing up. If the governor wants to...
Why wouldn't she not just want directly to give it to GMH then?
I'm not sure.
Well, I mean,
yeah.
it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. Why would she not?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that there is a money management problem, and she recognizes that. That's all I have,
I
Mr.
disagree,
Chairman.
Senator. I disagree respectfully. It's not a money management. But
Okay,
I
well,
guess for the
this
record...
this is her bill. This is not ours. This is her bill.
Okay.
And it's you know, again, the quickest way to, I mean, the quickest route to point A to point B is a straight line. It's not going to you guys straight. It's not going.
We know
why-
that,
why-
and we
why?
understand that, but
yeah,
it's not
we
about money
understand that,
management.
but why? Why not? Why? Why?
I can't answer
Yeah,
for why,
well-
but
well,
Mr. Byrne addressed that earlier.
The governor obviously sees that there's a money management problem here.
That's not the judgment. Mr. Byrne already addressed the response in terms of why
okay,
it should go to DOA.
If it
Thank
has
you.
to go to another party before it goes to you, it's obviously that there's a management concern, then a money management concern. That's what I'm saying. And this is not a bill that we wrote. It hasn't even been amended yet. It hasn't been amended yet. We're going straight with what has been given to us. We're reading what it says. That's all I'm saying. Why would it be stated in this capacity? And even Dr. Eusebio has mentioned that the way to go manage it is through a PPP. So I'm just jumping on what he has said. You know, other than the other issues that need to be addressed in regards to a public hospital, a better management resource will probably be through a PPP. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Senator Lujan, trying to finish this second round, we do have to, colleagues, take a recess because we have a scheduled hearing this afternoon that the author will need to deal with and recess, but we'll do as much as we can. Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mananasidos to the people of Guam, and thank you for watching on our YouTube channel, and thank you again to the GMH panel for being here. I just had some questions about the MOA that'll be developed between OTEC and GPA. I just have a bunch of questions about the kind of the timelines of some of the CIPs. So what would be the timeline for the development of that MOA?
So we currently have an MOA with GPA already, so it's just a matter of sitting down with them, and if the suggestion is to see how we can add in there some language regarding assistance with, developing scope. I don't think it would take too long as far as that is concerned. And then on the OTEC side, we would of course have to sit with our legal counsel and make sure we have the correct parameters. Yeah, I don't have a time frame for that because that's a recent suggestion. So.
And who from GMH would be responsible in developing the scope of work with OTEC and GPA?
Yeah, so it'll be, well, with GPA, it would be our FM team, as well as, because FM is under operation, so it'd be myself and Mr. Zaldi. And of course, we'll make sure that legal counsel is involved. And then, of course, on the OTEC side, IT is also under operation, so myself and Mr. Zaldi, as well as our administrator for IT, which is Manny Gabriel, and then, of course, OTEC. And yeah.
Can you kind of just go down some of the CIPs that will be covered by this appropriation and just provide the body with the respective timelines from estimated from start to finish?
So for the IT portion, Like we mentioned, several months. I would imagine at least, well, some of the items I think we should be able to get sooner, but at the maximum, maybe the more long lead items would probably take 6 to 12 months. And then for the electrical distribution panel portion, because again, that's not the entire replacement. So if it'll just be certain components, Mr. Zaldi may be able to clarify as far as timeline for that.
As far as, hello, good afternoon. Hello. As far as the main distribution panel, we're just looking at the first stage of which, one, to be able to proceed with the procurement, we need to make sure that the plans and specifications are updated. So in coordination with GPA, they could also do a simultaneous and concurrent review as we go along with that. So maybe, say, 3 to 4 months. After that, of course, we're going to go out for bid another 2 to 3 months. If there's no inconsistency with our documents, then we'll follow through with the award, notice to proceed and award, and then of course after that is permitting. And then right now I think permitting is about 3 months, so we won't be really able to accomplish much for a year. This is a big project, and with the amount that's being provided, I don't think so in a year we can be covered a lot. It's before 2019, it was estimated about 10, 12 million. Now it's 2025, going to 2026. That could be more than or about less than 20 mil. We don't know. The prices, the tariff costs that's going to impact this will really trigger the escalation of the price. So if we are able to start this now, then we'll know exactly what the amount would be as long as we are able to get it awarded. We won't know until then.
You had mentioned the HVAC was $1 million for the parts?
Yes, sir. That's only part and parcel to the whole systems. Again, we have very good projects, plans that have been completed before. Right now, we're looking at major projects like the 40 AHUs, removal and replacement, more than $1 million already. So again, that's in progress, but there's other plans already that's made that we're just chopping it down to make sure that we are able to start it. But again, that's not just a year's project. So again, we just need some money to start with. That way we can get this all lined up.
Right. Mr. Kenga, you provided a number, 83.9 million. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure, Senator. Let me just pull up my notes. So of the operating budget that was requested, 213 million, 133 million from net patient revenues leave a difference of 28.2 million based on the approved budget just for operations. So we added 28.2 million plus the 26.4 million estimated for accounts payable plus 29.3 million for all our CIP projects in FY26 equal 83.9 million.
And then Ms. Sachinova, you had provided a number that was upwards of 100 million.
Oh, yes. Our net patient revenue is expected to be collected at 133 million.
No, you had provided a number relative to the difference.
To keep it simple,
Yes.
yeah, just to keep it simple, our expected yearly expenditures, so what we're going to need to keep the hospital running, pay our employees, buy supplies, pay the power, is 213 million. But we only expect to collect 133 million from our payers.
Yeah, I think it's clear from the testimony yesterday that this $40 million is only going to get us a little bit down the road, right? And I mean, it's a very real possibility they're going to come back to the body and ask for, I mean, maybe even more than that in the next fiscal year. And I think we have to remember that while we all support the construction of the new hospital, the mission here should be to resuscitate GMH and make sure that we can make it until we open that new hospital. So I know one of my colleagues had asked for a real number, and I'd like to get a real number too. What is that cost going to be to make sure that GMH will survive for the next? And let's be realistic when you factor in, all the studies that have to happen, all of the preparatory work for the construction of the site, the groundbreaking, the actual construction. I mean, the estimates run anywhere, and I think I've heard this from you, Lillian, anywhere from like 6 to 10 years for completion of the new the hospital. So it's $40 million this fiscal year, maybe another 40 next. But what's the actual cost of all the repairs, the CIP that needs to be done to ensure that GMH can last all the way until we open the doors of the new hospital?
Well, this $40 million will help us get through this fiscal year 2025. And then when we start fiscal year 2026 in October, what we have requested and what was approved by this legislature was that $22 million from the pharmaceutical funds and then another $22 from the general fund. And then I think either $3 or $4 million for DOC. So that was what is then, in the budget that this legislature approved and transmitted over to the governor. The governor, however, substituted, that budget bill. And I think the numbers are much higher, giving us an additional $38 million from the general fund. But if we pay down some of this using this $40 million, so definitely there will be some lower numbers for fiscal year 26. But the CIP, the $29 million that we needed, some of it may be already covered by this, $11 million that we're expecting from this $40 million. And so that $29 million will be lower.
Well, I think one thing that's encouraging is, we're discussing millions of dollars going towards the Guam Memorial Hospital. And there's also amendments in the drive that seek to appropriate some of the bond refinancing, I think to the tune of $19 million. But I wanted to ask on the MCH, I know you didn't get a response for the bid, but is there an intention to put that out and see that project through to completion?
Yes, there is. As I mentioned earlier, the intent, and the last time we spoke about it with this body was that we were going to revisit the scope of work and then put it back out to bid. So I think we're at a point where in the next few weeks we should be able to put that out again. So yes.
And then actually let's start with you, Lillian. So there's kind of been a little back and forth about the part of the bill that says the $40 million will be appropriated from the general fund to the Department of Administration to fund GMH authorities' capital CIP, including the electrical system, operational costs, and supplies. And I don't even need to read between the lines because I think you had actually said on the record yesterday that you just prefer if GMH got the money straight away. So I just kind of want to ask you again, is that what you want to see us do with the bill?
That will be preferred, but we understand also the DOA's perspective with regards to the accounting of it and the record. But from our perspective, we deal with the vendors directly, and they contact us directly. When are we going to get the payment? And so a lot of times we don't get DOA's confirmation that they've already made the payment. So it would help us to have it directly. But I understand also DOA's perspective in terms of their accounting,
right.
Policies and procedures.
So, Mr. Byrne, if I may ask, if we, strike out the Department of Administration and the money just goes straight to GMH, what type, if any, what kinds of challenges would that pose for the payment of the vendors and other challenges? Because, obviously you've been very clear that you think the money should go to DOA and you should manage it outside of the procurement.
This is I've described several times the reasons why I think that it should go through that path. And incidentally, the money comes from DOA in the first place. It's not like it suddenly appears. DOA has to accumulate these funds in the very first place. The defects, if any, that might be latent in the process will not appear until later. And I think I mentioned yesterday that my first consideration is compliance, because compliance is one of the, or lack of it, is one of the things that delays audits. I don't have enough details to know exactly what's delaying the GMH audit at the moment. It's the last component unit to report. But whether or not it's to do with compliance, that's every day my almost the first word that I say to the DOA staff is make sure that it complies. And if it doesn't, we issue a notice of non-compliance, but that's after the fact. And I'd rather be before the fact. So, the path that Senator Lujan was taking, that it's not really going round in a circle. It's coming from DOA in the very first place. We do, I get inquiries from vendors too. I've had inquiries from vendors, in particular GPA and GWA, as to when these bills are going to be paid. Our system will respond to the question of what has been paid, when it's been paid. So I feel confident that we can answer those questions when and if they arise. Our system generates a remittance advice the same as any other system, and that would be available to the vendor and GMH.
So have you had any instances of non-compliance?
Not to my knowledge. And just to go back on this whole issue with DOA, since we had the appropriations, the supplementals for the 20 million and 30 million to pay vendors, DOA has been the one paying the vendors on our behalf based on this. And I will admit, when we first started the process, it was quite cumbersome. But we've come a long way. It's gotten better. Our issues have always been with notification to us that a vendor had been paid. So it's just that part of the communication that we really need to tighten up if this is going to happen, because oftentimes we're not aware that the vendor was paid or that a payment has been pending, and there's just a lot of back and forth that we want that part of the process to be a lot more efficient.
So could you just explain to me and the viewing public why that's important for you to know that a vendor has been paid? I think it'd probably be more important for you to know they haven't been paid. But
yeah, so of course the credit holds, we don't know whether they've been lifted or not, and then sometimes we've sent the payment to DOA asking them, this is urgent, hurry up and process it. Of course, they have their own processes that they have to follow to get proper approvals. Mr. Byrne wants to make sure everything is compliant and following their processes. Sometimes that may take, a week, maybe 10 days, whereas the vendor's expecting to get paid tomorrow or in 2 days. So we're trying to just explain to the vendor, the payment will come from DOA, so it may take a little bit longer. And some are patient and they can wait for that. There's other times when DOA had paid the vendor, but the vendor's not aware that the payment's coming from them. So there's just a lot of coordination that needs to happen between all three of us to make sure that it's more efficient.
And so who on this panel is responsible for paying those vendors?
I am.
Oh, so do you want the ability and the authority to pay them yourself with the
Yes.
$40 million? Yes, okay, so officially on the record. And
So we
Yes,
had
sir.
had an incident this morning, right? Yesterday we paid one of their vendors under 36107, but they either gave the incorrect banking information or no banking information. So this morning I had to reauthorize the same payment by check. So that's just an incident of, yes, coordination is needed.
But I was not notified. I didn't know about that until now.
Right.
So,
I just want to get it on the record officially because I feel there's a little bit of passive-aggressive energy going on between DOA and GMH. But Ms. Hachinova, can I ask, when GMH is making these payments, are you using the new financial management information system?
No, we use our own
Your
system.
own?
Yes.
Okay. And so then, Mr. Byrne, I hope this is relevant. Are there still issues with lag in processing payments, et cetera, with the new FMIS?
No, and in fact, while we've been talking, we've implemented some agencies may have shared with you the new Xflow system where agencies actually put the invoices into the system themselves, and it's actually speeded up payments by several days. So we would want to use that same process with GMH.
Okay. And then what would be the process for the payment of the vendors? Is this going to be 90, 120? You're going to start at the most outstanding payments? Or is it relative to who's the most critical vendor providing the critical supplies?
Yes, that's usually it. It's the critical suppliers that, because they will hold deliveries for us, so we usually go with the most critical. And the aging is also another.
Right. And I, go ahead.
The power.
Oh, the power, yeah, that's a good one. Right, okay. Thank you. And so I just wanted to reiterate Mr. Manabusan's comments yesterday they were very passionate, and I absolutely agree with him. And I thank your employees who came out, and like I told you guys, got to let your voice be heard, but got to be loud because sometimes we're hard of hearing in Army. But yeah, thank you. And it looks like the bill has the support. I see an amendment in here that would allow the governor to use transfer authority. So I think that's going to address your concern, Mr. Byrne. And then there are also other amendments to provide additional funding on top of the $40 million. So I'm really hoping that GMH can walk away with a win here. And I know it was earlier it was mentioned about the fiscal review committee, which is something that we have asked about the previous term up to this term. I would just say that I don't think you need a fiscal review committee to review finances that you don't have. And so I'm hoping that we get this bill passed, we get you the money you need, and then, you guys report back on the process and the progress. So, Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to question the panel, and thank you again to the hardworking employees of our only public hospital, the Guam Memorial Hospital. Sidus Masi.
Sidus Masi, Senator Burnett. Senators, at this time, we will take a recess until 2:30. Please be prepared to finish and vote on this bill today, as long as it takes. When we come back, I know that Senator Tello will address her public hearing and handle that disposition, but aside from that, we will vote today on this bill. Sidus Masi, we are in recess.